Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of our 5 Weeks to Exhale group coaching program. So I'm Sarah Waddell, as you've heard me in previous trainings already, and I am your coach here through this program. So I'm super excited to talk to you about what we're going to cover today in week number 2. So last week we did an energy audit where you ran through an audit of everything that you do in your day or your week or your year to see what energized and what's drained you so that you can deliberately create a more energizing schedule with the time to replenish and recharge so you can be at your best self. So this week we're going to be talking about creating positively powerful beliefs. So it's common for leaders and people just in general to have limiting beliefs, fears, or mental traps that keep them stuck. And so we're going to look at those today. We're going to look at things that you may be stuck with or maybe undermining your best self because it's keeping you limited in some way. And then we're going to look at reframing those thoughts or beliefs into powerful and supportive and positive beliefs that actually can retrain your brain in how it thinks and how it perceives things so that you can be much more powerful in your leadership, much more positive in your thinking, and that all helps you exhale and then thrive way better because you have the tools to be able to actually deliberately shift how you approach the world and how you see things, so that you can work with more ease, you can have more joy and more fun in your life. So I'm excited to talk to you about this week. This is a little bit of more heavy lifting than we did last week because this is going a little bit deeper into emotions and your thoughts that maybe you've been carrying around for a long time. So I'll be sharing with you some tools and how to unpack these this week. And then as you're working through it together, working through it on your own, then we can also work through it together during our Q&A group coaching sessions, or if you want to connect with me separately and get one-to-one support before the next session, then just send me an email and we'll connect that way. So let's jump right into how to create your positively powerful beliefs. So first, we're going to look at some things that may be limiting you or keeping you stuck. So these are the top 10 most common leadership traps that I've seen in my clients and my colleagues and myself over the years. And there are many others out there, but these are ones that I find they're most frequent and most common to have around the workplace. So one of the top traps that leaders struggle with, especially high-performing women leaders, because I know that they have high standards for themselves, is struggling with perfectionism. So when you're stuck with a perfectionist type tendency, then that can limit you from being able to get your work done. It can take you longer to complete work, and it can also keep you from really feeling confident in your work because you feel like it's never good enough in some way or another. The second one is overwhelm, and this can come from feeling basically like there's just too much to handle and your brain actually shuts off and you really just kind of pull back from everything out there. So this can be put you into a place of non-performance because you have too much going on and you're unable to prioritize or align with what your top personal values are. The third one here is a feeling of obligation. So this one can come from feeling like you don't have the power to choose how you deal with things or how you use your time or how you work with people, and that you feel like you have to do something, that you're obligated for some reason. And so the power then is shifted to something else instead of yourself. And that can leave you feeling like a victim in some way, like it can leave you feeling with blame for others. The fourth one is low confidence. So this is one that I find is existing in a lot of people, even though they may not talk about it much at all. But in private moments with clients, in private moments with some of my girlfriends at work or other colleagues or even my bosses when we've had a quiet time to talk about things, oftentimes a confidence issue can be present and it can limit people. So when you're low in confidence, then you're not about to step out in meetings and talk about things or share your opinions. You're going to have a harder time managing your staff or dealing with conflicts, or you won't necessarily be taking the reins in your work and your leadership role. Instead, you'll be more passive and sitting back and not really guiding your team or your organization the way you really want to, because you don't have the confidence to really step into that best self. The fifth one here is blaming yourself or others. So this can come from other ones tied in together, where there's a feeling of a victimhood, or like somebody else is running the show, and then people can either blame themselves or others instead of taking responsibility. And this one can be a hard one to get out of unless you can see what's going on. So the reason why I'm sharing these with you is so that you can see, you can kind of go, oh, I think that might be me, or oh no, that doesn't sound like anything that's related to what I'm going through, but maybe this other one does. So I just want to talk you through these a little bit and see what comes up for you and what piques your sort of attention. And like I said, if you are struggling with any of these, that's okay. So I will get to the next few slides. We'll talk about different things that are challenges, and then we're going to work through how we can reframe them and turn them into positives. So another one that can be a common trap is avoidance. So this often comes with feelings of overwhelm or perfectionism or low confidence or avoidance, honestly, or obligation, where then you know you need to do something, but maybe you don't know how, or maybe you've got so much on the go that you put that to the side, even though it's a critical thing, because you're overwhelmed. So that one's something to be aware of. It can often come at times when you're not sure how to do something, or if it's an overwhelming type activity, like maybe dealing with some workplace conflict or low performing staff, or maybe something that you don't know how to do, like managing finances, that you're avoiding because it's harder than it needs to be in your head, and so that can leave it, put you into a state of overwhelm. Another one is victim mentality, which kind of goes with blaming self and others, as well as some of these other low power, low confidence type traps. So if you feel like you are the victim, that somebody is doing something to you, or that you're out of control or unable to do something for a certain reason, maybe you're blaming somebody else or yourself, then you come at things with powerlessly, really, without your best self stepping forward, because you're coming from a place of victim versus strength. Another issue is codependency. So this can often tie in with perfectionism, where you believe that somebody else's approval of you or someone else's perspective is more important or powerful than your own. This can show up in relationships at work, but of course, relationships at home too. And so it can be a subtle or a very overt issue, depending on what level that you're dealing with this on. So if you feel that your confidence in your work, for example, is dependent on someone else's opinion of it versus your own, then you can get caught in codependence. You get caught in low confidence, blaming self and others. These all can tie in together depending on how you're seeing things yourself. Now, the ninth bullet here is burnout. And this one comes oftentimes when people take on too much work, when they say yes more than they maybe should, when they don't delegate properly, when they are doing everything themselves, or giving unrealistic deadlines, perhaps tending towards perfectionism. Perhaps it's also dealing with too much workload because now you're doing 3 jobs instead of 1 because there's not enough people around or not enough staff to do the work of your team, so you have to do it. So this is something to look at. If you're struggling with burnout, then there's a lot of different things you can do, as well as all of these other points. There's ways that we can address them together. Burnout is one thing that's going to be really helped with all of the activities that you do to exhale and unwind and recharge. as these other ones will as well. So when you're burnt out and you have low energy, all of these other tendencies towards negative thinking or self-deprecating behavior or all of that kind of ways of looking at the world pop up more easily when you're drained and tired. So if you're constantly overdoing it, if you're constantly burning yourself out, then you're going to be struggling more with low level thinking than high level thinking, of course, when you're full of energy. And then the final bullet here that I wanted to share with you all on the traps is overachieving. So if you find yourself drawn towards doing a lot of different things or having a high level of expectation on everything that you do, you can push yourself beyond what you need to, which can lead to burnout and lead to perfectionism and overwhelm and all of these different things. So looking at whether your expectations of your own work and for your teams is really realistic, or whether it is overdoing it and expecting too much to meet the job. So I personally believe in excellence. It's one of my top 3 personal values, but excellence doesn't mean perfectionism anymore. It used to. And in that, then I used to find myself stuck with overachieving because I was striving for an A++ or 110% on everything. And so I found that when I looked at actually being more specific about how I spent my energy, and whether something was going to be a superstar product or project or something else was going to be, oh, that's good enough project, really helped make it easier to prioritize and spend my energy in the most efficient way, because I was putting it where it was most important and not wasting it on times that were not as critical. So those are the top 10 traps that I've seen. And what I wonder is what ones may be limiting you. Perhaps a couple of these jumped out as something that you may be going through a little bit, maybe a lot, maybe all of them, maybe none. So just take note of what comes up for you as we were talking about this. Maybe there's something else that has come up for you. So maybe just take a note of that, either mentally or in your notes today, to look through that a little bit further as we go through these exercises this week. So now let's talk about some common fears. So oftentimes the traps that I've talked about were more of the action level, where your behavior is being influenced because of deeper thoughts. So sometimes there are fears behind those traps and behaviors that are creating them. So some fears that I've seen that are quite common in those that I work with are feeling concerned or fearful about being judged or rejected. Perhaps if you feel like you want to step out or say something in a meeting, but you're worried that you'll be judged or your comments will be rejected, then you would maybe then stay in protection mode and keep yourself safe by not saying anything at all. Unwanted attention could be, again, that same way, or oftentimes I see a lot of women clients that I work with being concerned about being seen either as a bitch or as a prize in some way, you know, getting sexual attention at work. They keep themselves closed off. Other ones that come up are feeling undervalued, so maybe they don't believe that they feel like they matter in their workplace, and so why show up fully? Or maybe they're concerned about their job security, so again, they don't want to rock the boat. But another one here is also about fear of losing credibility. So perhaps you've been in your job for quite a while or had quite a few years where you've been working on something in a leadership role or in your business, and you want to do something new. You know, your confident self has all these ideas, but the fearful self comes up with the concerns that, well, if I do this, I may lose my credibility, or people may see me, you know, if you're stuck in perfectionism, may see that things are flawed, and then I may lose my edge. So these may show up differently for you depending on what other things are going on in your head. So that's why I'm here to help you as your coach, to help unpack this together. Another one is a fear of being vulnerable. So we know in leadership, the more vulnerable a leader is, the more room for vulnerability there is in the rest of the team. but it can be scary. And knowing where and how to be appropriately vulnerable, to be authentic without being weak or without bringing in negativity into the workplace. This is a bit of a delicate one until you figure it out. Another common fear is the fear of unprofessional relationships, where you may be concerned that your colleagues may not be able to remain professional if you're more authentic or more vulnerable. Or another one is around common fears around change or something new. So maybe you've been in your organization for a long time and something new is coming up on the horizon and you're fearful of it. Maybe it's new technology if you're not a tech person, or maybe it's around new organization structures or new work roles, or there are a variety of different things are changing in our organizations every day. And knowing the process of change can really help you work through that more quickly. So we'll talk about that on another day. But just knowing if you are a early adapter or a late adapter, if you jump into things early with technology or other sort of changes in life, then you're going to probably adjust more quickly to most change than maybe someone who takes a while and let other people go through it first, and then they decide whether they will jump in as well. And then another fear is also around being concerned about becoming unnecessary. So as things change, as the workplace evolves, as new staff comes in, there may be fears of becoming unnecessary or unneeded. So how do you stay relevant in all of that is a whole nother stage of the thought process. But I just wanted to share with you again some common fears so you can see what may be coming up for you. And this may not be necessarily an instant answer. You know, you may need to do a little bit of self-reflection before what's going on for you may come up. So you're actually going to be looking at some deeper layers as you're going through the self-reflection activities this week. So just be kind about what comes up for you and recognize that you're guiding this process and going at whatever speed or depth that you're comfortable with. So use it as a tool to heal and support yourself, but only do it if it feels good. So make sure that you're feeling safe, that you can reflect in a quiet environment where you will not be disrupted. Maybe not doing this at work might be helpful as well, unless you can close your office door and get some privacy for a little while. And just see what comes up for you. Some of these fears, or maybe you have something else. And then I wanted to take this even deeper. So the first layer that we talked about with the traps is kind of the behaviors, so the actions that kind of come up from the fears that we just talked about on the previous slide. And what can create the fears are limiting beliefs. So you're almost, if you're looking at it, you're almost looking at it like layers. So what created those types of actions that put you into a trapped type of behavior? Those can be the fears or different thoughts that you have. And beneath those thoughts can be the limiting beliefs that create those thoughts in the first place. So these are just a few that I found, again, that come up quite often, but yours may be different, or you may have something else altogether. So one belief that is common that I see, again, also in high achieving women leaders, is that work must be hard, that we have to struggle and push and do a lot and prove ourselves and do more than our fair share to really be seen as valuable. Or you may feel that you need to sacrifice or trade something. So maybe it's only good enough if you're working through lunch and taking work home and working long hours. Or maybe you need to give up your time with your children at home, perhaps, because you need to do this work. There may be an either or sacrificing type thought trade going on. Maybe you believe that you have something to prove, or there's limited opportunity in the workplace or the workforce or the industry altogether. Maybe you believe that there's limited available income, or maybe you believe that you have to work long hours to be valued or valuable. So what beliefs are limiting you today or in this phase in your work, in your career? Maybe just see for a minute what comes up for you and jot them down if you have a pen with you today. And as you're going through each layer, you can use the word why. So ask yourself, why do I think that? Or why do I believe that? Or why am I fearful of this? And then you can kind of just slowly unpack it for yourself. And as you're going through each stage of this, what I encourage you to do is always remember compassion in everything that you're doing. So some of these areas that we're going to be touching on may be something that you've been carrying in your way of being or in your thoughts or beliefs for decades, maybe even for generations. Maybe it's something that your family has believed or approached things in a certain way for many, many generations, or perhaps it's more of even a sociological or society type cultural thing where, you know, oftentimes as women leaders, we are still dealing with a little bit of old-fashioned thinking about men's and women's roles in the workplace. Sometimes they can be really subtle or overt, but it's something that you can actually change if you want to. So that's what I wanted to share with you this week, is the power of looking at what's going on for you and what may not be working, what may be holding you back and keeping you from your best self, and then actually deliberately reshaping it. So this is the fun part. So this is where we take what we may be thinking or limited by or fearful around, and we switch it by reframing it. Then you can create something that is more powerful and positive and affirmative, so they actually support you in seeing things in a new way. And what happens as you work with these types of affirmation work or new beliefs is you actually start retraining your brain to seeing things in a new way. And this can be super powerful and influence then how you show up in the world, how you're going to act in your work, in your business, in your leadership, and also in your personal life. And then also how what you see as even possible can be shifted massively with this type of work. So I do this assessment probably 3 to 4 times a year, where I go through and see what types of mental states are holding me back, and then recreate them into giving myself new thoughts to work on implementing and adding into my brain, into the way I see the world, so that I can then take a massive quantum leap forward every 90 days, pretty much every season. So let's now jump into this for you. So what I am wanting to leave with you today is, how can you shift from these things that may be holding you back or keeping you limited or stuck, and shift them into positively powerful beliefs so that they support you to thrive in all areas of your life. So the first step is identifying current beliefs that may be keeping you limited or stuck, and that's what we've kind of covered off in the slides so far. And then you reframe them into positively powerful language. So I just want to give you one example. Yours may be different, of course. So one example would be, I have to work hard and long hours or lots of overtime to be valued and to keep my job security. So this is very simple. Yours may be different, but I just wanted to put it kind of basic here. So then you would reframe it by turning it into a positive statement with powerful language and in a present tense. So then we would say, we would switch this around from feeling like you have to work long hours and that you want to be valued and you are concerned about job security. Instead, we're going to say, I effortlessly show my value in everything that I do while working within my normal working hours. So this is a way that you can shift the thought into something that empowers you. So instead of being limited by having to work hard to show your value, you're switching into saying that you show your value in everything that you do with effortless effort, and that you do it within your normal working hours. So just changing it around can make a huge shift. Now, you may not believe it yet. You can see this is black and white, right? There's very opposite ends of the spectrum here. But what I'm wanting to do is to show you that you can change the way you think about things. And eventually you shift how you perceive it and then how you show up. So another example that I've used before is when I was doing my MBA and working and a whole bunch of things going on all at once that I've shared with you elsewhere. I found that I was overwhelmed and finding like I was coming at things almost a few minutes late. I was feeling like I was kind of behind, a couple steps behind where I wanted to be instead of being on top of things. And so what I did is I actually shifted my beliefs from feeling like I was running late all the time to I always have enough time for everything that is important to me, and I show up with time to spare. So then just by paying attention to that for a matter of a few weeks, over a month or two, it didn't take very long, but then I started showing up for meetings early. I started making sure that I was planning well so that I was on top of things instead of running late. And it took me from being in a victim mode where I was kind of struggling with the deadlines, and instead put me into a power mode where I was taking charge of what was going on in my life. I was deliberately becoming more responsible for how I was showing up instead of allowing those things to take over. And the change was huge, and it was really neat to see that just in the way I changed my thoughts, the rest of my behavior then fell into place and followed to support that. So it can be hugely powerful for you. And then if you want to play with it, you can either turn it down or turn it up. So sometimes if you're changing your beliefs into something that's too positive or too far of a leap, then maybe it can be hard for you. So if you try to turn it into something super powerful, then and it seems like it's not quite working for you, then dial it back a little bit, maybe reword the statement a little bit till something that works for you. But ideally, it is going to be a stretch. Ideally, it is going to be an actual change of your thoughts into a new approach. That's where the shifts can really come in. So you may not necessarily believe the new statement right away, but as you work with it, it's going to get in there anyway, and it can be really powerful for you. Or you can do the opposite and look at what you've written and see how you can improve it and make it even more powerful for you and more positive. So play with it and see what words work for you. And as you do this, you become more and more comfortable with how you reshape things. And like I mentioned, remember compassion. So we've talked about the decades and generations of time that you may be reshaping here. But I want you to see that you can reshape things in a more positive way in any area of your life. It's a matter of then working with it regularly by reading them on a regular basis, or maybe you want to write them out regularly once a day, or working on it or repeating it as a mantra in your meditation. I use a few when I drive to and from work some days when I'm feeling like I need a boost. And one that I love that you're welcome to borrow if you'd like is, things always work out for me even better than I could have imagined. And that is a nice blanket statement to remind me that it is true in my life that things always work out better than I had imagined. And just a matter of trusting the fact that they will. So it's a nice generic statement. It isn't specific to any of these limiting traps or fears or beliefs that we've talked about, but just a general one to remind you that things always work out. Sometimes we don't see the way just yet, but in hindsight, it's always the perfect path. It always works out the best way it should have. Always even works out better than you could have imagined. So if you choose to have a belief around something, that is a great one to have, because it reminds you to be patient and let the process unfold, but it also lets you know that things can work out better for you than you even imagined. So it just puts you again into that powerful statement and powerful sort of mindset where you're working with coming from a place of confidence and trust and patience and letting things unfold. And the more you repeat your beliefs to yourself, the more you're going to be putting them into your conscious and subconscious brain so that you're changing how you're seeing the world altogether. So like I mentioned, the time one that I was talking about, I probably worked on it a few times a week and made a mental note in my head that I was now looking at things that way. So instead of, like I mentioned, coming at things from a place of running late or just kind of barely making it on time, I ended up shifting how I approach things by showing up earlier, doing things more organized in a way that I could manage better. And it just shifted me out of that running late mindset into a running early mindset. And it made such a huge difference in everything else that I did, and my stress level and my happiness, right? It's never fun to run late and to feel like you're barely making it on time to a meeting, for example. So see what comes up for you as you work through your own reframing and your reshaping of your new beliefs here. Doing the hard, heavy lifting of seeing what you're maybe stuck with right now, but then seeing how you can reshape it so that it supports you in everything that you want to achieve in your life. So you can achieve anything. If you can dream it, you can do it. It may seem impossible right now, but we will get you there a step at a time. And one of the key areas to get you there is to really just get rid of the things that are holding you back by clearing them out, by giving them attention, noticing what you notice, uncovering a little bit of the layers, and then reshaping them into a way that will support you in powerfully positive beliefs that will support you in your best self, in your work and your personal life. So your week checklist for this week will be watching the training video, which you've done, so you can check that off your list in the workbook. And then you'll want to work through the workbook activities yourself. So I have some questions here that includes a list of each of the things we covered today, and then we'll help you come up with your own positively powerful beliefs. And then share your questions and aha moments in our Facebook group. Show up for the Q&A calls. If you want to work through one of these or a few different areas of your beliefs and want me to help you unpack them, we can work through those together in the Q&A group coaching calls, or just send me an email or put a post in the Facebook group, and we can unpack those together even outside of the group coaching calls so that you can work on it when you are actually in the moment versus waiting for our next session. And then continue to make time in your schedule for your meditation and other exhale activities. So what I'm wanting to do here with you guys is layering on these different tools, but don't forget to keep the basic things going. So whatever it is that you set up in your schedule last week, I want you to make sure that you're continuing with those every day and every week, okay? So make sure that you're committing to yourself and sticking with your plans for your guided meditations, or if you're listening to music or doing it in quiet, if you're doing other things like journaling or exercising in nature or other exhaling type activities, make sure that you're doing those on a regular basis, because they're going to keep you topped up. And then everything else that we do each week is going to add on to that, okay? So remember that you still want to keep doing those so that you make sure that you're replenishing yourself as much as you need. And then if you haven't yet, you want to check out the Simply Mindful Introduction to Meditation class that I have on the bonus area of the website. And you can check that out and see how meditation works. And there's some guided meditations in there, if you haven't seen them already, that you can use in your personal practice. So I hope you enjoy that, as well as everything that we've covered this week. And I look forward to chatting with you all in the next group coaching call. So the next one's going to be listed in the membership site. And then also I'll be sending out an email. We'll have the dates in this weekly email content that you will have gotten this video link from. And then also I'll be sending you a reminder as well that day, so that you can remember to show up for the call, and we'll have a group coaching session together. So your homework assignment is to complete the workbook and self-reflection questions, and then bring your questions and ahas to the Facebook groups and the Q&A call, and we'll work through those things together. So thanks for showing up for week 2 of your Exhale course, and I look forward to chatting with you again in next week, week number 3. So as always, I'm here to support you through your journey, and reach out to me, like I said, by email, or bring up your questions and areas where you want to work together in the coaching sessions, and we'll do them as a team. So enjoy this assignment. It's always great to see what new things you can come up with in making a positive, powerful belief statements, and I look forward to helping you with them so that you can get yourself unstuck and into a positively powerful mindset so that you can really be stepping into your best self, showing up with confidence, with powerfully positive mindsets, and the energy to bring your best self to everything that you do in your work, in your business, and your personal life. So look forward to checking in with you again next week in week number 3. So until then, we'll connect on the Q&A calls, and look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you again soon. Bye.